Oren stood on the observation deck of the ESA starship Consonance, gazing at the luminous tapestry of stars. The year was 2572, and humanity had ventured deeper into space than once imagined possible. Over centuries of interstellar travel, Earth's ambassadors had extended hands of diplomacy to countless civilizations, some friendly, others wary. Amid newly charted galaxies and unfamiliar faces, it became evident that distant cultures understood each other best not through complicated treaties or formal negotiations, but through the shared resonance of art. As the ship quietly hummed with life support and navigation systems, Oren clutched the small crystal drive in his palm, its surface engraved with a single musical score from his home planet. Little did he know how that composition would soon ripple across the cosmos, forging alliances where words alone had failed. He had named his piece Viatoria, a composition blending symphonic melodies with synthetic rhythms generated by advanced instruments never before heard on Earth. Oren was a renowned concertmaster from a lineage of gifted composers, each celebrated for bridging cultural gaps with sound. Over the years, he had grown disillusioned by humanity's endless pursuit of resources, politics, and expansions, noticing how these desires interfered with harmonious relationships across the stars. Yet he always believed music had a language of its own, an unspoken truth that could illuminate hearts and dissolve the boundaries that separated species. Viatoria was born out of that conviction. The arrival of the consonants in the Orion expanse was greeted by signals emanating from worlds reluctant to make formal contact. The star cluster bristled with uneasy tension. Diplomatic attempts had repeatedly failed between the coalition of Fourth Worlds and the Australis Federation, both powerful alliances on the verge of open hostilities. The Earth delegation, led by Ambassador Xi, had traveled there to prevent the conflict from escalating. They carried technological offerings, scientific knowledge, and reams of carefully crafted negotiation points. Yet there was no guarantee of success. Mechanical translations were riddled with cultural assumptions, postures, gestures, everything might be misread. Exploring possibilities for an alternative approach, Z had placed her faith in Oren's composition. On the detection grid, the swirling warships of the two alliances maintained a cautious distance from each other, forming dazzling constellations of readiness. Diplomats on both sides had arranged an armistice to allow Earth's representatives to speak just once about forging peace. They believed humans, with their centuries-long history of uniting under ethereal forms of art, might bring a fresh perspective. Few details were shared, but the rumor was that Earth's ambassador carried an unparalleled piece of music that would express sentiments no simple treaty could. The atmosphere around the starship was charged with both eagerness and dread. Shortly after docking at a neutral starbase orbiting the luminous gas giant known as Terivan Prime, Oren carefully unpacked the specialized instruments needed to perform Viatoria. Within the starbase's Grand Assembly Hall, delegates from the Coalition and Federation gathered. Many were bipedal. Some had elongated limbs or shimmering scales, and others used exoskeleton suits to help them move in environments without gravity. Their spoken languages were layered with whistles, clicks, or fractal wave pulses. Observing them, Oren felt a surge of awe and apprehension commingle within him. It was a testament to life's boundless creativity across the galaxy. A hush spread through the crowd once Oren and his small ensemble took the stage. With them stood the sleek, spidery-limbed android called Virtuo, which could interface with instruments that merged digital sample banks with living resonance, the hallmark of Earth's most advanced musical technology. There were whispers about Earth's reputation for emotional expressiveness. The Coalition's ambassadors shuffled their appendages, glancing warily at the Federation delegations. The Federation representatives, bristling with feathery antennae, waited in wary stillness. Oren let his gaze sweep over them, feeling the weight of countless eyes. As the lights dimmed, Oren raised his baton, made of a fiber that glowed faintly with kinetic energy. His heart fluttered in his chest. Each movement of the baton activated microscopic sensors in the instruments. Bow on string, breath through metallic pipes, and carefully programmed wave oscillations converged in a swirling tapestry of sound. The first notes emerged delicately, as if feeling their way through a labyrinth. Soft chords provided a murmuring foundation that beckoned the ears of every life form present. It was Earth's ancient tradition of orchestral strings spliced with futuristic undertones, subtle electronic pulses, crystalline chimes, and distant echoes that seemed to ripple through the hall's acoustics. The tension in the assembly softened. Some delegates tilted their heads, a universal gesture of curiosity. They recognized in the music a sense of longing and hope. Bowstrings quivered with measured vibrato. Electronic pulses rose and fell in gentle patterns, mimicking the surges of organic cells. Each measure seemed to coax an unspoken presence out of the air itself. Diplomats from both alliances found themselves involuntarily leaning forward, enthralled by the richness of intervals that emphasized both unity and dissonance. The composition for fleeting moments touched on haunting chords that evoked centuries of sorrowful history, yet it balanced them with triumphant motifs that spoke to resolute perseverance. Orin's intention was to connect them all to Earth's journey, a history full of conflicts that had nearly devastated the planet, and of reconciliations born from collective desire to heal. He had infused the composition with subtle references, melodic phrases from African drums, Gaelic laments, ancient Asian percussion, the soaring lines of European strings, and even the otherworldly timbre of Mongolian throat singing. Woven together, they formed a sonic tapestry reminiscent of Earth's persistent fight for unity. The effect was mesmerizing. In that reverberant hall, the delegates felt an intangible bond. They might not fully grasp the cultural nuances of these sounds, but within the layers of the composition, they sensed humanity's shared heartbeat. As the piece built toward its core, waves of harmonic resonance cascaded outward, guided by virtuose layering of electronic tonalities. Some of the coalition representatives, whose language involved complex chord progressions, began to sway gently, their membranes vibrating in sync with the mesmerizing rhythms. Meanwhile, Federation dignitaries, whose own songs boasted nested polyrhythms, tapped softly on the floor with spined toes. From two opposing camps, faint threads of rhythmic synergy began to form, almost by instinct. The central theme of Viatoria arrived with a crescendo that filled every corner of the hall. A swirling crest of sound that transcended the mechanical translation system's entire. Orin could feel tears gathering in his own eyes as he directed the ensemble, each note a testament to his unwavering belief that somewhere in the grand tapestry of existence there was a universal frequency carrying empathy and kinship. The final chord hovered in the air, vast and shimmering. Then it faded into silence. For an elongated moment, nobody spoke. The hush was far more eloquent than any outburst of applause could be. Delegates from both alliances looked at each other in cautious wonder. That evening, an unexpected conversation unraveled during the welcoming banquet. Representatives from the Coalition of Fourth Worlds tentatively approached those from the Astralis Federation. Discussions that had been laced with hostility gradually adopted a more measured tone, each side speaking with subdued caution. Orin watched from a distance, noticing how they gestured with a gentler touch, as if the music had awakened an intrinsic compassion. Small details mattered: the extension of a hand or limb, the inclination of a crest or antenna. All these gestures served to echo the music's invitation to find common ground. Word of Viatoria soon spread, carried on quantum-entangled communication lines, and beamed across sectors. The piece transformed into a symbol of Earth's capability to connect hearts across unimaginable distances. It found its way into private gatherings on starships, in remote outposts, and even on the fractal lattice planets of the Zin Consortium, which had rarely interacted with outsiders. There were stories of travelers who played snippets of Orin's melody in bustling markets, only to see strangers pause, their faces or carapace softening, enthralled by those gentle chords. Gradually, an unexpected phenomenon surfaced. Delegates who had heard Vittoria began citing the reverberations of its main theme in their own forms of music, weaving bits and pieces into local traditional songs. The coalition's multi-lanked singers introduced chord progressions echoing the composition's central harmonies. Meanwhile, the Australis Federation's polymelodic chants started referencing Orin's electronic pulses. Reports also emerged of once hostile border outposts acknowledging each other's transmissions with short fragments reminiscent of Earth's new cosmic anthem. Even fleeting moments of cultural misunderstanding were softened by the memory of that composition. Amid these developments, Earth's ambassadors felt guarded optimism. It would not be easy to erase decades of territorial disputes or resource contention. Nonetheless, the first seeds of collaboration were planted. Constructive dialogues resumed. Scientific data about wormhole stability, resource management, and ecological restoration was exchanged, with fewer veils of suspicion. Delegations that had refused to meet face-to-face now agreed to speak via holographic channels. Ordinary civilians on some coalition worlds downloaded portions of Viatoria's arrangement, reworking it into local lullabies. A wave of creativity was unleashed, burying old mistrust in new artistic expression. Embarking on tours across multiple star systems, Orin and his ensemble performed diverse audiences on the oceanic planet Ceruleus, whose diplomatic chambers stood at the bottom of an enormous phosphorescent sea. The watery environment forced the musicians to adapt their instruments to amplified subsonic frequencies. The earthly strings, combined with specialized aquatic resonators, carried the essence of Viatoria through fluid currents. Enthralling the bioluminescent Cephalo ambassador, they responded by layering their own haunting whale-like calls over the composition, creating an otherworldly chorus that resonated deep in the watery canyons. Next, Orin traveled to the desert planet Zelindi, known for its swirling crystals that whistled in the wind. There, he discovered a species whose sense of hearing was so acute, they detected tones as subtle as a single vibrating grain of sand. They listened to Vittoria with a stillness so profound that Orin felt as if he were performing inside the heart of a living entity. These crystalline dwellers had endured centuries of strife over mining rights, but when the final notes drifted across their shining plains, former adversaries sat side by side, marveling at the unity they experienced. The local elders expressed interest in forging direct dialogues with neighboring colonies. Music reveals more truth in moments than words can reveal in years, one elder told Orin. Across the galaxy, rumors spread of Earth's composition being used as a peaceful introduction to newly discovered species. Wandering explorers from the Terran Union would beam the opening bars of Viatoria into uncharted space, hoping to convey curiosity and friendship. In many instances, that simple musical greeting elicited a far warmer response than the standard data-laden transmissions. Not all encounters were smooth. Some stayed indifferent or suspicious. But slowly, the once tenuous idea that a single piece of art could launch alliances gained traction. Wherever the ensemble traveled, Orin witnessed transformations of spirit. Hosts shared glimpses of their own creative traditions. In return, the Earth musicians introduced new methods of blending intricate rhythms and tonalities. Over time, the boundaries separating audience and performer blurred. Jam sessions unfolded spontaneously. Multifaceted instruments materialized, combinations of Earth's advanced sonic technology and alien craftsmanship. Delegates from rival star systems found themselves standing side by side, exchanging instruments and techniques, forging connections that overshadowed their centuries of discord. To Orin, it was as if a cosmic tapestry was being gradually woven from the threads of distant cultures, each piece complementing the others in resonant harmony. Supporters of the militarized approach grew uneasy at first. A handful of generals and admirals from both alliances questioned how a simple musical piece could overcome the reality of resource shortages, strategic star lanes, and ancient rivalries. Yet even among the more hardened officials, seeds of reconsideration took root. They found that emotions long buried beneath tradition and duty were stirred by the composition's graceful complexities. Some officers confided, in private gatherings, that they experienced ephemeral kinship with those they had once deemed enemies. "It feels like empathy carried by sound," one high-ranking coalition officer admitted quietly, "as if we are hearing echoes of our own hearts in foreign ears." As negotiations advanced slowly toward genuine ceasefires, the turning point came upon the invitation of the Nebular Council, an influential body that facilitated arbitration among star systems. They proposed that representatives from the Coalition, the Federation, and Earth convene on a remote planetoid neutral to all parties. Circular conference halls were constructed on the planetoid's surface, transparent domes that provided a panoramic view of swirling cosmic dust. Delegates brought with them their histories of broken treaties, regrets, and unhealed scars. Noticeably, Orin arrived as well, his crystal drive in hand. Though negotiations commenced with an undercurrent of tension, something subtle had shifted. Old barriers had softened. There were more attempts to listen. Hand gestures, the flick of a crest, or the slump of an exoskeleton no longer triggered immediate suspicion. One afternoon, after a complicated debate near deadlocked over resources, Orin asked for permission to play a new variation of Viatoria. He had refined the composition by delicately integrating themes introduced by the Coalition and Federation. As delegates fidgeted, exasperated by stalemates, Orin's ensemble began. This new variation built upon the original structure, but added melodic segments gleaned from the Coalition's choral style and the Federation's deep polyrhythms, and soared with a fresh sense of unity, evoking the richness of cultures finally acknowledging each other as interwoven. This time, the music did not merely speak on behalf of Earth. It revealed reflections of all participating worlds in a mutual tapestry. The circular conference hall became a vessel for deeply personal reconciliations. Some delegates, burdened by guilt for lost lives from past conflicts, wept quietly. Others closed their eyes, absorbing the vibrations. A hush ensued at the final chord. In this charged lull, a Coalition dignitary with a shining crest stepped forward, voice trembling. "We would be open to negotiating the resource shares in the Tarivan region, provided our concerns about ecological preservation are recognized." An Astralis Federation delegate known for her fierce political stance unexpectedly replied, "We are open to altering the warp lanes to reduce environmental impact. Let us work out an approach that benefits both sides." The single moment resonated with significance, as if the music itself had urged them to speak with empathy. Encouraged by this breakthrough, Ambassador Xi and her Earth team guided the delegates into drafting new cooperation frameworks. Over the following days, meticulously worded agreements emerged, overshadowing the discord of the past. Centuries-old grudges did not vanish overnight, yet now they were cloaked in the empathy that music had awakened. Reporters from numerous species broadcast updates back to their home planets, referencing the remarkable effect of a simple Earth composition. A wave of cautious optimism swept through the galaxy. Diplomats in other disputed sectors also welcomed Earth envoys. With the hope that further shared creativity could lessen tensions, countless messages reached Orin expressing gratitude for introducing a perspective that transcended formal negotiations. When the final negotiations concluded, a monumental celebration took place on the planetoid. Delegates from the Coalition of Fourth Worlds and the Astralis Federation stood side by side, joined by ambassadors from many other unions. Orin and his ensemble performed the new variation of Viatoria one last time, beneath the transparent dome, star clusters, and nebular clouds arching overhead. The audience was no longer separated by centuries of conflict, but brought together by the common desire to shape a peaceful future. As the triumphant final chord echoed, thousands of voices, chirps, and pulses erupted in joy, each species adding something of its own to the collective chorus. News of the historic accord traveled across spiraling galaxies. Warfare had not been magically erased, nor had all hostilities been resolved for good. Yet the tide had turned. Countless species began considering harmony an achievable prospect. People from different star systems swapped musical motifs, engineering advanced instruments and collaborating on shared albums broadcast over subspace networks. Interstellar concerts sprouted at the border worlds, replacing defensive standoffs with vibrant festivals. By year's end, cultural exchange had blossomed into a thriving phenomenon, captivating billions. Back on Earth, Oren was welcomed as a returning hero. A crowd greeted him at the interplanetary spaceport in Geneva, cheering as he stepped out wearing his well-traveled conductor's robe. Media outlets praised the composer who started a symphony of peace, but Oren deflected credit. Viatoria was only the first step, he insisted. Countless artists from all worlds must join together to keep the music alive and growing. Earth's governmental leaders recognized his profound impact by establishing a galaxy-wide cultural institute dedicated to exchanging creative expressions. Music, visual arts, storytelling. Inviting delegates from every corner of known space. Over the next decade, Oren received invitations to help orchestrate collaborative performances with ensembles from various star systems. Each collaboration brought fresh insights, new harmonies, and deeper mutual understanding. Tribal chants from the desert crystals of Zilinde fused with oceanic calls from Ceruleus, forming hypnotic aural landscapes that soared alongside Earth's classical strings and electronic pulses. Posters depicting multi-species ensembles became a common sight, reminding everyone that unity was achievable. A cultural renaissance swept the galaxy, an all-encompassing symphonic wave that championed creation rather than destruction. Meanwhile, Viatoria's story passed into legend. On far-flung colonies, parents lulled their children to sleep with lullabies inspired by its simpler themes. In advanced scientific hubs, researchers played excerpts to test the physiological reactions of newly encountered life forms. Time and again, the universal response was one of calm wonder. Composers from Earth and beyond reinterpreted the piece in countless ways, blending it with cosmic rock, ephemeral plasmic instruments, or alien folk traditions. The composition became less about Oren's authorship and more about the universal longing it embodied. In an era spanning star systems, music proved itself a more potent unifier than the greatest fleets could ever enforce. It awakened empathy, inspiring alliances that ambitious political declarations alone could not secure. Through heartfelt notes, once rival civilizations glimpsed each other's core essence, a connection that overcame suspicion bred by distance or difference. The dream of universal peace, elusive and fragile, edged closer to reality in that ephemeral moment when all hearts, all minds, swayed to the same cosmic rhythm. Standing in the newly established Galaxy Hall of Cultural Harmony, Oren admired an immense mural weaving together images of coalition and federation delegates united under shimmering starlight and swirling notes. For the grand dedication ceremony, he was once again asked to conduct Viatoria. The crowd that gathered was easily 1,000 strong, representing hundreds of species, each with its own unique sentiments, pains, and dreams. Oren's baton hovered, capturing the collective breath of the assembly. The first chord sounded, low and warm, anchored by the deep pulses of the Federation, then complemented by the intricate harmonies of the coalition, festooned with Earth's melodic sensitivity. As the music rose, an overwhelming sense of hope seeped through the hall. This was more than a performance. It was a living demonstration of shared purpose. The swirling chords guided them through layered pathways of memory conflict, grief, and finally reconciliation. Every note expressed a silent pledge that despite our differences, we are bound by the same quest to understand and nurture life. Each delegate felt the gravity of that pledge. By the time the final chord dissipated, the silence carried that unspoken vow across the starry vistas beyond. Long after the last echoes of the performance had faded, life across the galaxy continued, with all its challenges and unresolved tensions. But there was a persistent harmony that had not existed before. People recalled that fleeting sense of unity whenever they listened to Viatoria or its innumerable variations. In negotiation halls, starship bridges, and the quiet corners of frontier outposts, the music lingered in the minds of thousands, a gentle reminder of how easily barriers can dissolve when we glimpse the light within each other. At the end of his journeys, Oren found solace in this truth. Music, unbound by language and unconstrained by cultural prejudice, gave voice to what words could never fully convey. From across the vast tapestry of existence, through storms of war and tides of time, it remained the one universal expression, capable of transcending the boundaries of species and the borders of galaxies. In that knowledge, he hoped, was the promise of a future in which the stars shone a little more harmoniously for all.